Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Tin Man's Core channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. Today, I'll be reacting to 3 scary story channels. And the first one I'm reacting to is Chilla Tapes. And the video that I'll be reacting to is beach theme related because that's why I'm wearing my sunglasses and star hat today. But it's titled 3 Most Disturbing True Beach Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
Me and my family had just moved to Costa Rica, and we enjoyed spending most of our time at the beach. One beach in particular, which was near a lovely little river I liked to swim in.
Oh, wow. I can imagine moving to Costa Rica would be expensive. And plus, it's more tropical down there and you don't have to deal with bad winters down there at all. But anyway, let's continue with the story, see what happens next.
It was on this same beach that 9-year-old me found dead body floating in the ocean.
Oh.
To give a little context, I had been playing on the beach, which we thought was a relatively safe beach, so my parents were farther up. How wrong we were about it being safe. I remember seeing something floating in the water, but I wasn't sure what it was, so I went to investigate and found a dead man just floating there. Part of his leg had been hacked off. It was obvious he had not drowned. The man had clearly been murdered.
That would be creepy to discover on the beach. You're out there having fun, playing in the water, and then you see a dead body with one of its legs hacked off. That tells you right there he didn't drown, and like this person said, and didn't get attacked by a shark. He was deleted and thrown there. Run away from the body. Tell your parents to call the authorities down there quick.
Around this time, we had heard about a recent string of murders that had happened both on the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, where we were, and on the Pacific side. The murders had been happening every 6 months, rotating in between both regions of the country. As far as I can remember, the details of the murder were never disclosed in any of the local newspapers, only that the man had been a tourist from England. So there was no way for anyone who had not seen the man on the beach to know the specifics of his murder. Eventually, the whole thing blew over, and we returned to that same beach. I can't quite remember a time frame, but it was definitely within a few months of me finding the dead man that this next part happened. One day I was swimming in the river with my mother when a very strange man popped up out of the water, startling us. He had a spear gun in hand and a snorkel mask on. Anyways, he began talking to my mom, and I think we could both tell that something was just off about this guy.
Yeah, first of all, how in the world would a story like this blow over that quick? Unless the public just lost interest of knowing anything else about this case, or nothing else happened. But that will be creepy just to be swimming and then you see a guy pop up with a spear gun and wearing a snorkel. I'd be like, what is this guy up to? Is he trying to hunt for sharks or some other type of fish with that spear gun? Or he might be the person deleting random people.
I wasn't really paying attention for most of their conversation, but I do remember him bringing up the recent murder on the beach, and he seemed to know a great lot of details about it, which, as I previously mentioned, were not available to the public. It almost seemed as if he was trying to confess that he was the one who murdered the man, but without directly saying so. He also talked about how he traveled in between the Caribbean and the Pacific side of Costa Rica, spending half a year in each spot. Eventually, they also got on the topic of what he did for a living, and he went into a great detail about how he made the masks for the movie Eyes Wide Shut, and that he would make those masks, and I presume other ones, based on real live human emotions, and that he specifically liked capturing the look of fear. We were totally taken back by this guy and didn't really know what to do. Eventually, he just got back into the river and swam away, and thankfully we never saw him again. I do not know if this is related or not, but the weird strain of murders suddenly stopped after that.
Oh man, you could consider yourself lucky. If that guy was the person deleting all these other random people on both sides of Costa Rica, then he probably gave up on doing that and left. I'm just glad he did not turn that spear gun on the mom and this kid telling the story, because that would have been scary. And I don't know if I should buy that whole story where he said he made masks for a movie. I mean, if he does, that's great. If not, he's just telling you that just so he can have a cover story. So let's get to story number 2.
My parents used to be nudists when I was small and would encourage me and my brother, 7 or 8 at the time, to accept our bodies, not be afraid to show the skin that we were born in, other child teaching stuff like that.
First of all, I still think showing off people's bodies on the beach is weird. You teaching your kids that, you would definitely attract the wrong type of people towards them because you don't want your child running around naked and then creepy purrs, if you know what I mean, will be lurking around and thinking nasty things towards them. Like if you want to get your child into this whole nudist thing, wait until they're like older, not while they're still young kids.
They informed me that a lot of their reason for being nudists was because of a very manipulative and persuasive friend they used to have who was into the practice. They are now extremely embarrassed about their period as nudists and try to hide the matter from a lot of friends and family. Well, anyway, my dad and mom both worked a pretty stable job in an online accounting firm back then, so we went on holidays quite often. I used to love going to Spain the most, so we chose to go to Spain that summer. On our 10-day trip there, before we headed off to the US for a weekend, we enjoyed going to the beach almost every day. Of course, at the time, my parents loved nudist beaches, not only for people like them, but also to get a perfect, lineless tan. So, we were on the beach, and my dad and brother were splashing around on the shore while my mother and I were on some sun chairs, her sleeping and me burying my legs in some sand. I didn't really have anything growing on me back then, so nobody paid much attention to me. They did like to look at my mother occasionally, though, and when I told her we moved our chairs back to a more secluded part of the beach where there were less people, she fell back asleep, and next to us were a couple, with 2 kids playing behind their chairs, which I thought were their kids. The woman looked at me as I reburied my little legs in the sand and pointed at me, whispering something to the man. She stood up and hung a towel from the sun umbrella above them. He reached into a duffel bag next to him and got out some sunscreen and started to rub it on a sausage like thing between his legs vigorously.
Oh, that is just disgusting. What he's rubbing is his thing. And that dude's wife is okay with him doing that at the beach. Yuck. That tells you right there that's a sick couple. I'll be awakening the mom right about now. But also, I can agree on, like, if you don't have no bathing suit at the beach, you definitely get a seamless tan. We always got to look out for those weirdos that look at you.
He was staring intently at me, and even 14 years later I remember that odd look of determination but pleasure on his face. He passed the sunscreen to his girlfriend/wife, and she slipped some in between her legs as well. Even at that age, and with my parents being nudists, I felt an instinct that it was not right for them to be staring at me and touching themselves like that. I tried to ignore them and look away, but when I looked back, they were still staring at me. The woman's look was a little softer than the man's, but still really thoroughly creeped me out. What happened next is one of the creepiest things that has ever happened to me, and that is saying a lot compared to other things that have happened to me. The next minute, the woman stopped touching herself and got up. She wiped her hands and area and reached for me, grabbing my arms and shushing me, trying to pull me out of the sand I was buried in. The sand was giving away quickly, and I screamed for my mother. She says I kept going, "Mummy, help, Mummy, help." I don't remember. It was all in a blur to me as my mom got up and yelled, "Que está haciendo?" Which means, "What are you doing?" at the woman. My mom said the woman quickly let go of me and, not in Spanish, but in Northern English accent, which she must have guessed because of the English tinge in my mother's Spanish, explained to her that I had buried myself deep in the sand up to my nose, and she thought I was going to slip under, so she had simply pulled me out of concern. The sand underneath me was wet, and from my hips upwards I had not a spot of sand stuck to me whatsoever, so my mom knew she was lying. "Your daughter is very pretty. We meant no harm," the man said, unaware he was still rubbing his nether regions. At that point, my mother loses it. What the fuck did you just say? And what are you doing to yourself? You disgusting old twit. The man realized and removed his hand from his inner thigh. Just sun cream. Keep the old sun from burning me. Just rubbing it in. Do you like hip hop? Is what I said. My mother reminded him his wife had draped a towel that was blocking all sun, and he blushed profusely. She spat in the woman's face, got my hand, and dragged me away quickly. We got to my brother and dad, and she told my dad what had happened. He stormed over to the lifeguard and explained to him very shortly the situation. Then him and the lifeguard went to where our stuff was. The couple had taken off, and all that was left were their seats and the two kids. Mom scoured through our beach bag for her cell to call the local police station, but her phone was missing. So was my dad's wallet. The lifeguard radioed into the beach kiosk to call the police and to play on the speakers placed on the bars around that two kids were unaccompanied and their parents need to collect them. In about a minute or so, a woman came running, tears in her eyes, and scooped up the two kids. They must have been around 2 years old, and she held them, crying her eyes out. She thanked the lifeguard and my parents and told us that her husband had fallen asleep, and we told her the couple must have taken them and moved them to their spot. She had her cell in hand and said she was just about to call the police. My mom told her to, and the lifeguard offered to drive us all to the station, including the woman and her husband, as his shift was about to end. We all changed and drove down. In the end, my parents and the nice couple gave their statements. 2 days later, that couple was caught in a hotel, offering kids around a pool sprites that had been apparently drugged. They admitted to being child fetishists and were arrested for many charges like child abduction. They were found with a kid in their hotel room, attempted kidnap, child molestation, trespassing, amongst others. My dad says they were deported back to somewhere near Bradford, but ran away before court was due.
Oh, godly, that is just disgusting to hear that they were child fetishes. Ugh. Something like that just makes you want to throw up. But I knew it that if the mom did not grab their belongings quick enough, that couple would have went right through it after they got up and left. And they grabbed her phone and the dad's wallet. Great. But I'm glad that the cops caught them and arrested them at another hotel. But I cannot believe they endangered children's lives by drugging sprites to give to them. And I hate that they ran away before they were supposed to be in court. But hopefully they had a manhunt started for them and get caught and dragged back to court, because they don't need to be allowed wandering any European countries or even try to come over here to the States. They're dangerous. But my advice to you all, if you go to the beach, even if it's nudist related, always keep your eye out for people that might look at your kids or yourself in a weird, nasty way. Get lifeguard or police over there to tell them to stop and have them arrested. I'm just sorry they had to go through that.
This happened a few years ago, right before I deployed to the Middle East. I'm in the National Guard, so before we deployed, we had to train up at Fort Hood, Texas. After our training was finished, we got a 4-day pass. I was single, no kids, so I decided instead of going home, I would travel around Texas. After a few days in Austin, I wanted to see the Gulf, so I traveled to Rockport, Texas. I parked my rental about a 10-minute walk away from the beach since it was a nice day and I don't mind walking. It was pretty quiet as it was about 9 a.m., but there were still quite a few people there. I was laying out and reading my Kindle when a heavily tattooed young guy walks up to where I'm laying out and he asks if he can leave his clothes near me while he takes a dip. I say sure. He goes in the ocean and I don't really think much of it. He comes out of the water about 10 minutes later and proceeds to lay down next to me and starts chatting. I kind of wanted to be left alone, but he seemed harmless and I didn't want to be rude, so I talked with him for a bit. His name is Angel, and he said he lived about 30 minutes away. He tells me he would have joined the military, but he spent time in prison. I don't ask for what. He tells me it was for some mix-up. This mix up landed him 8 years. I try and direct the conversation to more harmless things, but he doesn't act like a lonely stranger or even a guy trying to hit on a girl. He's completely uninterested in anything except why I'm here and who I'm with. Then he starts getting real creepy. He keeps repeating back to me that you're really all alone, you came here by yourself, you're not with anyone. Alarm bells are ringing. I didn't actually phrase any of it quite like that, but he read between the lines.
Yeah, alarm bells will be going off in my head because if he spent time in prison for a little mix up and got out of prison and starts to hit off on the lonely woman there, things will go really bad for him if he gets any closer next to her. At this point, I'd be like getting up and say, I gotta go. I just remembered I gotta be somewhere. Well, let's just see what happens next.
Note to future self, always pretend to be waiting for friends. I start stressing that I'm leaving that day, I wasn't, and that I'm in the military and have to be back soon or they'll consider me AWOL and start looking for me. True, but not for another 2 days when my pass is up. He pretty much ignores all of this, and I notice that we are both watching people walk by us carefully, if that makes sense. Luckily for me, it was getting more crowded and families were walking by us in pretty steady intervals. He starts asking me what kind of car I drive, what hotel I'm staying in. He asks me where I'm parked. I tell him a rental, I'm leaving, and I don't remember where I'm parked. I've been creeped out for a while now, and I've been in some dangerous situations before, but I've never been more frightened than in broad daylight, surrounded by people, talking with this creep. He then starts telling me about this party in his town later tonight and that I should come. I could meet all of his friends. He offers to drive me. Again, I bring up that I'm leaving, I'm in the military, and all that jazz. He continues to be amazed that I'm here all by myself. He also tells me he's parked right behind us. Do I want to see his car? No. No, I do not. I tell him I'm comfortable where I'm at. He had also put on his cargo shorts he took off for his ocean dip and kept rubbing one of the pockets while he talked to me. There was definitely something in there. I doubt it was a gun, but this guy was scaring the hell out of me, and it made me wonder if he had a knife or something. Now, I know it seems strange that I didn't just up and leave, but this guy was making every hair on the back of my neck stand up, and I wanted to extract myself without pissing him off. Then, after mentioning the party again, he says something even creepier. He looks at my legs and says, I bet you can run for days. What the fuck? There was zero context for this statement. We weren't talking about working out, athletics, the Olympics, fitness routines, or even military training. None of those topics came up ever the whole time he was creeping me out. I look over and a family is walking by us fairly close, so I leapt up and started gathering my stuff, telling him I gotta go to the restroom. See you later. I power walk down closer to the water and walk along the beach in the opposite direction of my car, towards the pier where there were restrooms, snacks, etc. He followed me the entire way while talking on his cell phone. I was walking along the beach while he was walking along the edge of the parking lot that ran parallel. Once I reached the pier, I doubled back to where my car was actually parked. I watched him until he finally stopped following me. There was a small booth that the parking attendant sat in. I parked in the free lot behind her, but I stopped and told her the situation, described the car I was getting into which she could see from her booth. She agreed to make sure I got in my car safely. A little paranoid since I was fairly certain he had stopped following me, but just in case. I'm just glad the beach was fairly crowded.
Yeah, thank God the beach was crowded because if he did something to you right there, I know a bunch of people would have swarmed in and knocked the crap out of him because it seems like he really wanted to party with this woman. But when he looked at her legs and said, you look like you could probably run for days, and she noticed that he might have had a knife or a gun on him, that would tell you right there he meant like scaring the crap out of you to where you would definitely be running away from him before you get stabbed or shot. But thankfully, he didn't follow you to your car. That's very creepy. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more chilling tapes reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I said that's a wrap. Have a nice day and stay safe on the beaches.